All right, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the deal. Where are we? We are Unit 3, Lesson 16, and we are going to learn how to do things with our mouse or with a mouse pad in your case. All right, so we are going to go ahead and go there. And again, I strongly recommend you follow along as I do this. So one more time, this is Unit 3, Lesson 16. All right, so it says read through the following. This is an if-else prediction. Read through the following program, paying special attention to the if-else block on line 10. After discussing the following questions with your partner or me, write down your predictions and run the code to see what the program actually does. Okay, so let's see what the code says. It says if key down space balloon scale equals balloon scale plus 0.02, else balloon scale equals balloon scale minus 0.01. So what do we think this means? So obviously we're dealing with the scale. What do you think the if else statement is going to make happen? If, what happens? What has to happen? What's the conditional? If we press the space bar, then what? What happens to my scale? It comes. So what happens if I don't press the space bar? It goes smaller. Okay. So that's a prediction. I don't know if we're right. So if the space bar is pressed, then the balloon gets bigger. If not, it gets smaller. Because remember, scale controls the size of a sprite. All right, cool. So that is my prediction. Go ahead and hit run. And my balloon's getting smaller, but the minute I press the space bar, it starts to get bigger again. So that's exactly what happened. This is an if-then statement. If I do something, then something happens. Otherwise, something else happens. So there we go. Awesome. All right. So now, of course, we have our friend to talk about condition if-then statements.
Conditionals, like if statements, are great for getting something to happen when a condition is true. But what if the condition is false and we want something else to happen? That's when the if-else statement comes in handy. At first, an if-else statement looks a lot like a regular if statement. But by clicking the plus button down here, we can add another condition, the else. The if-else statement will do one thing if the Boolean expression is true, and will do something else if the Boolean is false. In this case, we're going to create a sprite in the middle of the screen. Next, we'll add a draw function, followed by a white background. Now we'll add an if-else statement by dragging out the if block and clicking the little plus button to give us an else. Let's give the conditional something to check, like
Give me 1 second.
whether the right arrow.
Sorry, I don't know what happened with my screen. Whoever's music that is, I don't know how you can listen to me and listen to your music at the same time. Just be advised, I did send out failure notices last night.
Oh yeah, I got that.
Yeah, you did. For 2 classes.
Arrow button is being pressed. If the right arrow is being pressed, then the sprite will go right. But if the right button isn't being pressed, then the Boolean will be false and the code in the else section will run. In this case, it will move the sprite to the left. Finally, we'll draw the sprite and see what develops. Now that you can use the else statement, your programs can perform twice as many actions and reactions as before.
All right, so the cool thing about the if-else statement is that it makes it easier for your programs to be more complicated with less code. So that is the important thing about if-else statements. All right, so we are going to go ahead, as we always do, and we are going to go through our first few bubbles together, and then you will have time to work on the last ones on your own. All right, this one says reverse the gears. These gears already spin in one direction when you press the spacebar. Now you'll want them to spin in the other direction if the spacebar isn't pressed. Do this. Make the gears spin in the opposite direction when you are not pressing the spacebar. Let's see how this works. So right now, when I'm not pressing the spacebar, they're not moving. But when I do press my spacebar, they move. So the idea is I want to, when I'm not pressing my spacebar, to get these to spin in the opposite direction. All right, I can do that. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I am going to want to hit this little plus button in my conditional to create the else space. Okay, so I hit the little button that was there and I created an else. And so now I want to make my gears roll in the opposite direction. So I need to create 3 variables because I have 3 gears. So I'm going to drag this over 3 times. And then, let's see, this is blue gear rotation. So I am going to I'm kind of copying the above code. I'm just going to make it opposite. So this is going to be blue gear. And then, oh, no, that's not X, it's rotation, my bad. So I want a rotation, another rotation for the second one, and a third rotation for the third one. So like I said, all I'm doing here is copying the above code. So it says blue gear rotation, so I'm going to change this one to blue gear. Blue gear. I'm going to change the middle one to green gear, just like above. And I'm going to change the bottom one to red gear. Now remember, the idea is I want these to go in the opposite direction. So for blue gear, I originally have a -1. So instead, I want to have a +1. For green gear, I originally have a +1. So opposite is going to be a minus. And for red gear, I originally have a plus. So for opposite, it's going to have to be a minus. That being said, I'm now going to copy out the rest of my code. So blue gear rotation goes on top. Blue gear. Green gear rotation goes second. Green, oops, no space, gear. And red gear rotation goes last. Red, oops. Red gear. Okay, so it was originally -1, so I'm going to make this +1. It was +1, so now I have -1. And it was originally +1, so the opposite, of course, would be -1. All right, so that should work because what my program now says is if the keyboard is down, press down, the space bar is down, then I have negative rotation for blue, positive rotation for green and red. But else, in other words, if this isn't true, if the space bar is not down, then I would have the opposite rotations for my sprites. So I'm gonna go ahead and reset this and I'm going to run it. So right now I am not pushing the space bar and we can see how those gears are spinning. But the minute I press my space bar, you'll notice they reversed direction. Okay? Issues or questions? Issues or questions? Beecham, since you got here late, do you have your pass? Did you have a yellow or a red pass?
No.
Do you want to go get one? Yes, love. Okay. Let me reset mine.
You can zoom in.
Yep. Hopefully that helps. Bring your computer. Capitalize the word gear. So that's how the program runs originally. You remember the names have to be like exact. So see how it says red capital G gear, green capital G gear. So just change all your G's down here to capitals and see if that works.
No, how would you do that?
Yes. Sure. All right, any other issues or questions? Are we ready to move on?
No.
Thank you. Please grab your computer and get logged in. All right. You good? If you need help, bring your computers up. Anybody? All right. We're going to move on then. Go ahead and hit finish on that one. Boop-a-doo. All right, bubble 4, control the gears. Here is the same program with one small difference. Read the program carefully, especially line 13, to figure out how to control the gear. Run the program and test whether or not you are correct. Make the gear spin the opposite way when there is no user input. All right, so now this is for a mouse press. So if you press down your mouse, so let me go ahead and run. Nothing's happening. If I push my mouse, then it works. By the way, your mouse, your cursor for your mouse needs to be on the picture of the program for it to actually pick up that it's working. Does that make sense? So you can't have your mouse over here and that wouldn't work. So make sure your mouse cursor is over the program area, and now my mouse is causing these to roll, not the space bar, but the mouse key. All right, so now it says I want them to roll in the opposite direction with no user input. Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to make this smaller so I have more space to work. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my else space. So now it's saying if I press the mouse down, my blue gear rotation is negative, green gear is positive, red gear is positive. But I want them to spin opposite if I'm not touching anything. So I'm going to do exactly what I did before, but this time we are using the mouse to control it. So we're going to grab down 3 variable. And I now need my sprites. So I need rotation sprites. Oh, I don't know what just happened there, but that's okay. Apparently I pulled one too many over. Sprite rotation, sprite rotation. Again, I want opposite. So the first one is negative. So opposite for the first one would be positive. I have positive. So opposite, of course, is negative. And then I have positive for red. So obviously the opposite is negative. So now, again, I need my sprite rotation. I need 3 of those. And again, I'm just gonna go ahead and put my ones in now, because why not? Okay, but now I need to change the word sprite to my actual name of my sprite. So the first one is going to be blue gear. The next one is green gear. And the last one, of course, is red gear. Okay. So technically speaking now, when I run my program, what I should see is if I'm not touching anything, they should be spinning. And then when I touch the mouse, it will spin in the opposite direction. All right, so hopefully this works. All right, so I'm not touching anything, and my gears are spinning. And now if I press down on my mouse pad, they spin in the opposite direction. So just like we could use the space bar or the arrow keys to control stuff, we now have a thing in our yellow world box that can also be a mouse control feature, which is kind of cool. Issues or questions. This is very similar to what we just did, but instead we're using the mouse control. Questions, issues, program's not working. Anybody? Okie doke, moving on. Okay, so bubble 5, it says, here's a program that does a drop balloon down the screen. Make the balloon go up and down according to whether or not the user is pressing the mouse. Do this. Add code that checks whether the mouse is being pressed. Move the balloon up if the mouse is down. Otherwise, the balloon goes down. So when I press my mouse key, my balloon should rise up. Okay, so this is going to be from scratch. So I already have my draw loop done. I'm going to go into my control drawer, and I'm going to grab an if. You can even grab the if-else statement if you want to, but I always tend to start with just an if statement, and then I just hit my plus button. So if the mouse button is clicked, awesome. So go to your world box, mouse down. I'm going to drag that over. Then what do I want to have happen? Well, if my mouse is pressed, then I want the balloon to go, move the balloon up if the mouse is going down. Okay, so I want the balloon to go up. One thing that I want to remind you is that if I'm going up in the Y, that means my numbers are getting smaller, okay? So if I do a variable for my balloon in the Y, and again, it has to go in the negative direction because my numbers are getting smaller. I'm going to need a minus here. Grab, again, your Y direction, and I'm going to say 1. Okay, so the name of my sprite is balloon. I'm going to flip that over to balloons. All right, thank you. And I am going to run this. So right now I am not pressing anything. My balloon is going down. And then if I press my mouse, oops, I hit the reset button. If I press my mouse, it stops. Okay, that is interesting. So obviously I haven't done this correctly. So what was the else part of this statement, right? If I press the mouse down, the balloon goes down. If I'm pressing the mouse, the balloon goes up. Otherwise, the balloon goes down. So I need the else part to the statement. So I'm going to go say, if I press the mouse down, then this happens. Otherwise, I'm just going to grab that line 9 of code and just drag it inside of my else statement. So if I press the mouse, the balloon is going to go up. Otherwise, else, the balloon goes down. Because remember, in the Y, positive is down because that's just the direction that it goes. It's just weird. All right, so now I'm not pressing anything. My balloon is going down. And once I press my mouse, my balloon goes up. Not pressing, balloon goes down. If I press the mouse, then the balloon goes up. Okay? So this is, again, an if-else statement. If this condition is true, otherwise, this other condition happens. Issues or questions?
Did you make the color bigger?
Yep. So that's the part that I added. Let me know when you're good, Leotis. Any other issues or questions? Is it working for everybody? At least the people that are actually doing their work? If you have any problems or issues, please come up and see me. Any issues, any problems, any questions? Otherwise, I'm moving on. Moving on, going once. Moving on, going twice. Issues or questions? All right, we move on. All right, last bubble that I'm doing with you is bubble 6, because I want to say 7 and 8 are the ones that you're going to be working on your own. All right, so it says add World Mouse X. This program uses an if block to shake the blender when the mouse is on the left side of the screen. Do this. Run the program and see how it works. Add an else statement to make the mixer shake when the mouse is on the other side of the screen. So for this one, I'm going to turn on my grid because I like to normally do that, and I'm going to go ahead and rip the program. And when my mouse is over here on the on the left side of the screen, the blender's shaking. But when it's over here, everything stops shaking. And the idea is, as I want the mixer to shake when I have my mouse over here on the right side of the screen. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this code. So it says world mouse. Okay, so if the mouse is less than 200, then my blender has this random motion. Okay, so if it's not there, in other words, if it's greater than 200, if it's over here somewhere, I want my mixer to move. And again, I'm just going to kind of copy the code that's already there, but I'm going to make it for the mixer sprite. So again, I'm going to grab my variables. I'm going to need 2 of them because it's going to have to be random in the X and the Y. I'm going to grab my sprites. Again, 1 for the X, 1 for the Y. I'm going to go into my math drawer and pull out my random number. Okay, so I need to change the word sprite to mixer because I know that the sprite's not called sprite. And then I need to figure out what numbers are working for me because I don't think these numbers are going to work for me because that's not where my mixer is. Because I created my mixer at 300, 300. So that's kind of where it sort of sits. So I'm going to make the randomness, instead of being at a location of 300, 300, I am going to go 5 in one direction, 5 in the other. So 5 would be 295 all the way up to 305. And again, I'm picking these numbers based on where I created the sprite. I'm creating randomness 5 to the left and 5 to the right. For the X, looking at my Y location, again, it was 300. So I'm going to go 295. That's 5 to the right. And then, of course, 5 to the left, 305. And if I hit run now, if my mouse is over here on the right-hand side of the screen, on the left-hand side of the screen, my blender mixes. And if I move over here to the right, the mixer is moving. Okay? So there is that. Issues or questions? So there is my code. Leotis, I'm not trying to be funny, but you need to just have a seat there. You're fine. I don't care that you want to move up to see. I'm just saying you can't block other people from seeing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, you should have bubbles 1 through 6 completed, or 1 through 5. I forget how far we went. The next 2 bubbles are yours. So you have the practice on the next bubbles, A, B, and C. And then the following one after that is your assessment, which I think has something to do, I don't even remember what it was anymore at this point. Oh, it was like this little creature thing that needs to shake when the mouse is near it. Any issues or questions on this code? Issues or questions going once? Issues or questions going twice? All right, we move on. We'll go ahead and hit finish on this one. Continue. All right, so bubble 7, you have a ladybug that you need to fix and a ghost that you need to fix. And then on number 8, the idea is that you are going to change the code so that the creature only shakes when I press the mouse. Right now, when I press the mouse or not press the mouse, it's still shaking. So you just need to fix that code. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you now have whatever time we have left to continue working. Please do so. As always, if you have questions or issues, see me.